So that's the first finger on the 5th fret of the A string, 4th finger on the 8th fret of the D string, barring still the 5th fret of the G string, 2nd finger on the 6th fret of the B string, and you're barring the 5th fret of the E string. And again, the way I play this, I play the chord, and I play that note. So I'm kind of strumming up those notes and then plucking that last one. And if you notice that melody section, it's staying on an E note for 2 chords, and then the next one stays on a G note for 2 chords. It goes down to so the melody is, and then it goes down to that. So the next chord after that is this chord, and that's basically your 2nd finger on the 8th fret of, or I'm sorry, the 6th fret of the E string. You skip the A string, and then you bar the 5th fret on the D string and the B string, and then you have your 3rd finger on the 6th fret of the G string. So it looks like a little triangle, your D shape up here. And then it plays that high E melody, or the high A melody note. So you have, and we'll examine what these chords can be called and where they can be used, kind of thing, after this. Now the next chord is, and that's got an open A. You're not playing the E string. You have an open A, pinky on the 6th fret of the D string, 3rd finger on the G string on the 5th fret. 1st finger bars the 3rd fret of both the B and the E string. So that's, and again, that's played. And I like that little dissonance going on there into more dissonance, where the next one is your 2nd finger on the C note of the A string. You don't play the E string again. And if you wanted, it's kind of a tough grab. I have a hard time with this. You could put your 1st finger on the 2nd fret. I'm sorry, that's the 2nd finger on the 3rd fret of the A string. 1st finger on the 2nd fret of the D string. Pinky goes on the 5th fret of the G string. You bar this 2nd fret of the B string, and then your 3rd finger plays the G note on the E string 3rd fret. So it's this. And it's kind of a hard grab because your pinky and your 3rd finger really have to stretch. If you want to cheat, you can avoid playing this 2nd finger on the D string and just play these 3 notes with this bass note, so you're not trying to bar this whole thing. You know, whichever way it makes your hand a little more comfortable. So again, that whole thing, and I have a hard time with that grab still. So the whole thing is, and I think I even played that bass note first so I could have time for this grab. And then I resolved down to a major 7 chord, which is your typical 1st finger on 1st fret of the E string, 3rd finger skipping the A string. You don't play that. 3rd finger on the 2nd fret of the D string, 4th finger on the 2nd fret of the G string, and 2nd finger on the 3rd fret C note on the B string. So now I had other voicings, like when I couldn't grab this, I was going to do maybe this voicing. Down to this. I don't know, I just wanted some tension, and I really liked this voicing. And I know I wanted a C note because I was resolving from that note to the F, which is basically the 5th to the root. So if we look at the bass movement that I have going on in these chords, it's really like the sixth, and again, he plays that F major the whole time with the walking bass, but it's really outlining this F major. I start basically on the sixth chord of F, which is the D note. Then I go down to, or again, you could also examine this as an F chord instead of this F major chord. It's got a fourth in there. And then I end up, so you take that note, and then you lower the F down to the D note, which if this was played over D, it would just sound like a different version of an F major chord. But this ends up having the sixth in the bass. Anyway, so it goes from this, the bass part goes from a D to a B flat to an A to a C to an F. So I like that movement there. So I tried to figure out, basically I came up with the, that simple bass line, and then I wanted to figure out chords to go around that. And then I also wanted that melody to have two of these notes, then two of these notes, and resolve down to this, which again, that's a fifth movement. So you're getting a fifth movement here. This is again talking about relative movement and parallel and all that kind of stuff. You have a fifth from this C note to this F note. Then you also have a fifth from this G note to the C note. So you have this. And that's parallel movement. So I have so that's how I came up with that little chord walking thing. Now, just to talk real quickly about how this whole progression is working. Again, if you're thinking of this in the key of F, you have the one chord, right? It starts out with this. With both of those are suggested over an F note. Then you go to this A dominant 7 chord, which is really going from that major 1 chord to a dominant 3 chord, which we'll discuss. We'll discuss why things like this happen. There's a whole bunch of theories of substituting chords, dominant chords for major chords or minor chords and all that kind of stuff. There are no rules. I mean, you could break any rule as long as it sounds good, and it doesn't have to sound good to everybody. It could just sound good to your ear, because a lot of people hear fusion stuff and some altered chord. Like a lot of people might hear this chord and just think, "Ooh, that's ugly." To me, I like that. So. Anyway, so it goes from the F to the 3 chord dominant, A to the minor 6 chord, which is, that's your 6th note of F. So that whole thing is, that's the 3 chord dominant to this, the 6. Back to the 1, but this is now dominant, which is an F dominant chord, and it just slides up and down to this, which is the 4 chord, which is dominant. So it's basically so far a 1, 6. It's got a 3 and a 4 in there, but basically you're staying in that bluesy thing. Then it walks up this, which again is your 1 chord. So it resolved from the 4 dominant back to the 1. Then it went to this D minor chord again, where I played the 6th in the bass, which again, that's your 6th chord off of F. Then from there, it goes to a G minor, which is a 2 chord of F, which again, there's kind of like a 6, 2, 5, 1 progression, which is a typical jazz thing. And that's exactly where he goes. After that 2 chord, he goes to C major, which is your 5 chord, but it's major, back down to 1. You know, he goes down to this F chord. So that whole ending section is literally a 6, 2, 5, 1. So that's, but he plays it up here. And then he goes into that arpeggio thing. And then what I end up with after that, after the arpeggio, I end up with this chord, which is, you're basically borrowing the 7th fret with your first finger on the the A and D string. And then you're basically playing like your D major shape up here on the 8th fret. So you have your 2nd finger on the 8th fret, pinky, that's on the G string, pinky's on the B string of the 9th fret, and then your 3rd finger plays the 8th fret of the E string. So that's... And I just do that, and then just you go 12 frets up, and you do harmonics just like you would if you were doing on the 12th fret, or, you know, you got all those harmonics. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with that. If you're not, we'll get into that, or just ask me a question and I'll explain this. But it's pretty straightforward. And when I do that, I actually sweep up and I try and outline that shape. And I try and get all that in there with a sweep. And you might miss it, but as long as you can do it this way too. You know, you could try and tap those notes on an angle to get those most of those notes ringing. So anyway, so that's that lesson. I think that was probably more drawn out than it had to be, as usual. But again, a lot of people say they like that in-depth explanation, and I hope you guys that are watching this are one of those folks that like that. We will get into, again, I'm really excited about the next lesson. This was kind of an introduction, and again, if you notice, there wasn't anything crazy. They're just standard chords with a little shifting of notes here and there. There was a cool little arpeggio and stuff, but if the next lesson, when we get into the Don Mock Ballad of Triangles, that's a little more challenging, because it's not, again, not crazy bass movement or anything like that, but it is chord forms that you may not be used to, and it's just analyzing triads with different bass notes. So it gets into, and if you play some of those chords by themselves, they sound really dissonant. But with the voice leading that he uses, it just sounds natural. It's a really cool experiment on how to use chords with different bass notes and everything. Anyway, we'll get into that in the next, maybe not the next lesson. I think I have a Guthrie lesson coming up, and Carl's got a cool country lesson coming up. It's not really country, it's just talking about bends on how to use country bends and in different ways. It's really cool, and it translates across the boards into rock, fusion, everything. Guthrie uses it, everybody uses this kind of stuff. So take a look at that. Take a look at guitarbreakdown.com. Again, this week, next week, something will be up. And we're really excited to what's going to happen at the end of the summer, because we got this event that we're really trying to put on, and it's getting closer to being a possibility. So stick around. Click the like, the subscribe, all that kind of stuff. Again, it helps us know that you guys like this stuff and you really want more. Send us emails or comments, and we will get to your questions and suggestions and everything, and just tell us how much you like us, because it makes us feel good, or tell us how much you hate us, because sometimes we hate ourselves. I don't know. All right. Again, hope you guys enjoyed that, and I'll see you on the next lesson. Thanks.